I'm Greg Pickel. He's Nate Bauer. Blue White Illustrated, Penn State, a stunning 20-18 loser against Illinois on homecoming. Nate, I just don't really know where to start because there's not very many nice things to say. James Franklin spoke right around where we're standing here a few minutes ago. Didn't say much, no opening statement. It was about a 5-minute news conference. He said Sean Clifford, they felt like gave them the best chance to win in this game. Afterwards, Sean Clifford also talked saying that they just didn't execute enough, they didn't play well enough, he didn't play well enough. I don't know where to go with this. 20-18 in a game that they were a 24-point favorite at home against a team that just had 93 total yards at home a week ago.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First, I think an unhealthy Sean Clifford makes that line ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because we saw what Penn State's offense looked like in the second half from the second quarter on at Iowa. And Iowa's defense is pretty good, but they're not that good. Right? Penn State couldn't snap the ball at Iowa. That was dysfunction that Penn State had. And so, yes, they felt like Sean Clifford was their best option. Obviously, because what alternative is there? Right? What other choice did they have? And so, I mean, I just think that it's an indictment on where they stand at that position and what it does to them as a football program. And then you saw that, right? Mm-hmm. I understand there's going to be a lot of conversation today and in the next week about Illinois running for 300 and a bajillion yards.
Penn State's given up 300 yards on the ground since 2016.
Okay.
When they did it twice against Pittsburgh and against Michigan.
Okay. If you hold a team in major modern college football to 10 points in regulation, you have to win the game.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. We can sit here all we want and complain about this, the defense, that, the defense, blah, blah, blah. PJ Mustard, obviously a big loss. But to your point, 100%. You can't hold it. It just, especially at home, no less.
This is a bend but don't break defense. They say that they're a bend but don't break defense. They bent, they didn't break. It wasn't luck. It wasn't fluke, right? They had other opportunities where, yes, they missed them. Jaquan Brisker could have ended the game. Mm-hmm. I don't think that anybody will debate that. There were other plays that Penn State's defense could have made, or the special teams could have made, missed field goal that would have ended the game. However, Penn State's offense was abysmal. Sean Clifford could not run the ball. Everyone in the stadium knew it. Illinois very, very quickly diagnosed what it was going to have to do to win the football game, and then it went out and did it.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that we're sitting here and we're talking about, how could this have possibly happened? None of us were paying attention to what happened in the second half of that Iowa game if we were feeling that way.
Yeah.
Because it was so obvious how vulnerable that situation made Penn State.
There's no question about it, Nate, but I guess the other thing I would say on top of that is we watched them 8 times out of 9 not score from the 3. And we can sit here and say all we wanted, it takes some of the playbook away, all the defense you can't stretch them, blah, blah, blah. Well, Penn State wasn't stretching anybody anyway today. So let's forget about that. You got to be able to run the ball, and this has been the problem. We've talked about it on probably 5 or 6 of these post-game analysis videos now. They can't run. They run up the middle with Tyler Warren on a 4th and 1 in the normal part of overtime. Okay, great, but then they get in here in the situation where they're on the 2 and the 3, and they can't run Noah Kane up the middle for 2-3 yards to win the game, basically. I mean, the root of the problem is that. It's an unhealthy Sean Clifford, and when you put those two things together, this is an offense that I don't know how it's going to Columbus and scoring any points. I don't know how it's going to score any points against Michigan if Sean Clifford is not healthy. If he can run a little bit, maybe there's something to work with. The guy we saw out there today, to me, is not close to being ready to run. And you can only imagine how he feels now. And we know how he felt coming into the game. So it makes you just really wonder how this thing's going to play out from here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, if you even look at the plays that what did they finish? Did they finish with 200-ish offensive yards?
227.
Okay, 227. Did that include overtime? I think that
it includes the normal parts of overtime, not the 2-point parts.
Okay.
Yes.
My point being, they had 75 yards on 2 passing plays.
Right.
So
take those away and then what?
If you take those 2 passing plays away, one of which was a prayer from Sean Clifford, Jahan Dotson made a great play.
Should have been intercepted. Yeah.
Should have been intercepted, and then the other one was a busted coverage in one-on-one for Keandre Lambert-Smith.
Yep.
This is the big question. I think that you have to start to ask. There are roster management issues for sure. Like, we're not going to escape that Penn State was unable to shore up the quarterback room in the offseason the way that it needed to. But that's water under the bridge. Like, you can't do anything about that once the season starts.
Right.
Okay. Mike Yurcich was brought to Penn State to be able to figure it out.
Right.
And that was, I wrote stories about it after the Wisconsin game.
Yep.
Jahan Dotson's talking about he figures it out.
Yep.
Sean Clifford's talking about he figures it out. That is what this guy does.
Right.
Well, you've got a situation that obviously is not ideal.
Right.
But this is 2 games now where if Penn State's offense is able to do literally anything,
Correct.
they walk away with wins and maybe buy themselves enough time to get healthy to where you do have the options that you want to have. So I don't know. I mean, it here's the thing. Penn State's defense, even without PJ Mustipher, and I understand, like, who knows? Ohio State might hang 45 next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I saw a team that still held Illinois to 10 points in regulation.
Right.
You would think that they are not completely lost in the wilderness, that they will still have an opportunity to perform, but it's a non-starter in today's college football if you can't put points on the board.
Correct.
This Penn State offense cannot put points on the board.
Linebackers overran too many plays. Defensive linemen got swallowed up too many times. Can you fix that? Can you scheme around that? We're going to see what Brent Pry can do as we move forward here. But, yeah, it's the offense at this point. When you're an offense that can't run and everyone knows your quarterback can't run, you become pretty easy to defend against. And it doesn't matter if you have Jahan Dotson or Parker Washington or Keandre Lambert-Smith. But you become pretty easy. And if you can't even, I mean, the tight ends are killing this team this year.
Yep.
They can't block and they can't catch. That's a problem. And I know that I was reading some things on social media. I know everyone wants to point the blame at Ty Howe. Okay, if you want to do that, fine. But he doesn't have a Pat Fryermuth or a Mike Gesicki, but he has guys that are good. I mean, they dropped the ball, and that drop by Theo Johnson right back here was killer in this game.
Totally. That was killer. Brent Strange in overtime, one of the a million overtimes.
Yep.
Brent Strange dropped a pass. I mean, there were, if the ball hits you in the hands,
right,
coach can't bail you out in that point.
Right.
And that has been the case for not just this game. I mean, that has been a recurring theme this season. I just think it's so fascinating to me to consider what one game at Iowa did to the trajectory of this season for Penn State.
It was going this way, and now it's boom.
Right?
In 3 weeks.
And here's the question. I'm going to write about it, and I think that it begs the question. What happens at Penn State football under James Franklin that creates a tailspin after the first loss of the season? Why does that happen?
Why is Jahan Dotson standing down there saying, in a similar tone but not the same as last year, that we can't overlook the part 15 of period 2 at practice. We can't overlook the little things.
Yeah, you got to get the young guys to understand. Right. Like,
why are we still talking about that? That's a question that I think has to be answered, and I don't know the answer to it right now.
Right.
But I cut you off. Go ahead.
Amateur psychoanalyst here, who has absolutely no qualifications for the position, would just say, look, I can't remember what the game is that we were talking about it, but we were on this field and we were talking about national championships and college football playoffs. Mm-hmm. Penn State wants that. That is the aspiration that this football program holds. I understand James Franklin talks about 1-0 every week, and that is the approach that they take through the season. However, when the standard and the goal is national championships, throwing this out there, spitballing, but you feel like you're already out of the running as soon as you lose a game. Mm-hmm. Yep. In the new playoff. Right. That is what it is if you lost the game in the first place, you're out of it. Well, maybe that emphasis, maybe those aspirations are part of the problem. I mean, look, like you can't fault somebody for wanting to be elite and for wanting to be the absolute best in the game, but if this is how it transpires after the first loss of the season, and typically, I mean, we could talk about different instances, but a lot of times the second game that they've lost is against a lesser team.
Yes,
it's
correct.
An inarguably lesser opponent.
There's just no excuse to lose this game. And I'm sorry,
even with a dead Sean Clifford.
Right. There's just not. You had 8 chances, or how many? I think there was actually with 4 it would have been, to end the game on your terms at the 2 and just finish it. You had a chance for an interception. I know it's not easy. I know that the quarterback made a really nice play to knock it out. But and that's the biggest problem over the last couple of years now, is finishing on their terms.
Yeah.
And until they get over that, you're going to have disappointing days, I think, like at Iowa, and you're going to have disappointing days like this one.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, because that's just where they are right now. Right. Is this dumbfounded sense of disappointment, right? Like, it's just like you're shocked, and then you kind of you have to move on from it. Right. But you saw a team last year that couldn't ever move on from it, and it had the same, like, the injuries, all of that stuff. It all matters. I get a little bit frustrated sometimes when people talk about injuries as excuses. They're not excuses, they're reality.
Right.
If your starting quarterback, the guy that you have that's supposed to direct the team, is out, that's a problem.
Right.
Whether he's out
it's
or
also
or
a problem that they don't feel good enough about the backups to have that Sean Clifford version toward the end of that game continue to be the best option.
But it is what it is.
It's the reality.
But it is what it is. Like,
yes.
That's the whole thing, is like it's too far down the path to cram. Right? Like, we talk about, like, study sessions, whatever. Yeah. You're not going to make up that time in 2 weeks. Right. And so if Taquan Roberson wasn't prepared at Iowa, and he obviously was not prepared, as difficult as that situation was, it doesn't change the fact that he's just not ready. He's for whatever the reason is. He is not ready. Sean Clifford is ready. Sean Clifford showed it through the first 5 games of the season. Without him, though, you're in massive trouble. And I think that Ohio State, obviously I'm talking just after Penn State loses to Illinois in a game that nobody really expected them to lose.
Yeah.
Ohio State is going to do whatever it wants in that circumstance defensively. Right? Like, how's Penn State going to score points?
Right.
It's just not going to happen. Right. So, no, I mean, look, it's gut check, drawing board time for really not just Sean Clifford and the offense.
No, it's everyone in this program.
Exactly. Yep. It's James Franklin. It's the program as a whole has decisions to make about how it wants to proceed.
Penn State 20. Illinois 20. Penn State 18.
18 points.
In 9 overtimes in 4 quarters. Hard to believe.
Illinois at home.
Illinois upsets Penn State on homecoming. He's Nate Bauer. I'm Greg Pickel. Join us at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for the latest fallout of this game, report card, Nate's column about this one, and more. We will see you next time.